Welcome back into another edition of Gaughan Racing. Jeff Motley here in the South Point Hotel studios. Brendan Gaughan joining me remote from Florida. You're at Space Camp with the kids this week, is that right?
We're at NASA Space Camp, baby. This is one of the things the kids look forward to the most throughout the year. They love coming here. We do a little Disney trip first, of course. You know, we got to throw in a little Disney if you're out of the way out here in Florida. So we did a little Disney. Now we're hanging out at Cocoa Beach, and the boys are at NASA Space Camp. And it's we got a launch tonight, actually. We're doing this Thursday, of course. So, you know, Thursday tonight we have a launch for SpaceX. So we'll be here on the beach hanging out, watching the launch. And I tried not to make you jealous this time, Motley. I know the last time I was remote, I had the amazing view of Ojos Negros down in Baja. I didn't want to do it to you. If I turned the camera that way, it's a really, really crappy view of a great patio on the beach. And I just didn't want to make you feel bad today since, you know, you're sitting at the studio in Vegas.
Well, you already got me feeling bad when you told me you're in Cocoa Beach. That's actually where I got married back in 2009. So hadn't been to Cocoa Beach since, to be honest with you. So, you know, it is what it is. So anyway, but Brendan, we got to talk a little bit about Sonoma last week. You know, we talked all about this repave and, you know, then we built a wall down there in turn 11. We didn't know how it was going to affect the race. By the end of stage 2, we had come within one caution of the record for cautions. I mean, we put the teeth back into Sonoma Raceway last week.
Yeah, no, the start of that race was pretty much bad, right? I mean, the guys were just banging into each other and wrecking all over the place. And
it was like old Sonoma.
It started out slow, but they were beating and banging. But I'll tell you what, it heated up well. And at the end of that race, how about, I mean, all the stuff that happened at the very end? You got Martin Truex running out of gas. You got Kyle Busch I watched the replay. You and I talked, remember, Motley, after you said, what do you call it, ran out of gas, Kyle Busch? I said, nah, he got dumped. And, you know, you watch the video of him and he got turned by Chastain. I'm surprised I didn't hear more in the aftermath of that. But in the end, you and I had Kyle Busch for a top 3. I'm sitting there going, go, go, go. I had Chris Buescher for the,
his group.
We all had these. Yeah. Well, and I had Ford. That's what I had, Ford for his group. And I'm like, all right, come on, Buescher. In the end, Kyle Larson pulls it out. Ford ends up with still a good day with second and third. It was an up and down day. Some of the names that we didn't expect showed up. Some of the names we did expect didn't show up. Not much of a noise out of the 2 Australian supercar guys. We knew that this would be a different Will Brown and Cam. We knew it wouldn't be like we talked about it last week. It wouldn't be like Chicago and that stuff, except for Shane in the Xfinity race, where, by the way, I loved the burnout taunting Austin Hill way around that last lap.
And I also loved Shane Van Gisbergen's comment. They asked him about celebrating with the rugby ball. And he says, well, celebrating with a rugby ball is a lot better than smashing a perfectly good watermelon. I thought that was one of the funniest lines that I had heard. So, and by the way, I had Kyle Busch to win his group, and he lost it to Ross Chastain. So I was a little unhappy that happened with Ross Chastain too. And I didn't see what happened on the last lap because I was at Sonoma, and I'm literally standing in the pits, and all I see is, where's Kyle Busch? Where's Kyle Busch? And finally he comes across the line, and I'm like, he's lost all these positions, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? But hey, at the end of the day, it was Kyle Larson's day. Great pit strategy by his crew chief. It paid off for them to be able to get that win. It's Kyle Larson's second win at Sonoma in the last 3 years. He won there in 21. He won there again in 24. Kyle Larson has definitely set himself as the guy to beat, I think, for this entire championship.
Well, he's been doing that most of the year, right? I mean, remember, this is a guy that has missed a race, Jeff. Missed a race and is the point leader.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. In fact, somebody said he was unwavered last week, so that was good for him. Good for him after everything that he went through.
Unwavering.
And his numbers, you know what? He was a plus 800 to win the race. That's one of the best odds you're ever going to get on Kyle Larson for a race win. He was plus 200 for a top 3. His head-to-heads, he beat Truex at a plus 130. Pit Crew, I believe, had that one, and he beat Ty Gibbs at a plus 105. You and I both had that pick last week. He also won Group A at plus 290, and he brought Chevrolet home for a victory at a plus 140. So a lot of good numbers if you jumped all in on Kyle Larson last week.
Well, and I had him in one of the head-to-head bets. I mean, that I couldn't believe he was a dog in a head-to-head. So I think that was, he had great numbers, he had great returns. I don't know if that was because people were thinking, oh, the Indy thing was a distraction or something. I don't know, but I know that I was like, me and the pick crew both picked him in a head-to-head bet because that was much better than what it was. I mean, and so I'm happy that he went that way.
Well, we were all on that one. That was the only win I got last week, was getting him over Ty Gibbs. So at least we got that. And taking a look at the top 10, again, it was kind of a little bit of all over the place. Michael McDowell and Chris Buescher, two guys who have proven themselves to be terrific road racers, both placed top threes. They both were plus 400 for their top threes. I don't think there's any real shockers in there other than maybe Todd Gilliland getting a 10th place finish. Another strong run for him. I tell you, he's been very consistent in that 10 to 15 range all year, and you just kind of feel like that team is just slowly getting better and better and better, and that was 2 top 10 finishes for Front Row Motorsports with McDowell and Gilliland up there.
Yeah, look, Front Row, I think they're definitely trying to establish what they're going to have coming in the future, right? The loss of SHR, they're already a Tier 1 Ford team. Now they're going to be, they're trying to get a little more kind of up to snuff, and I think that they are absolutely proving it, and Todd Gilliland has completely earned, in my opinion, Jeff, he has earned that extension that they just signed him to a couple weeks ago. I think Todd Gilliland is really starting to come into his own.
No question about it. I think he's proven he's a very capable driver, and look, I think that team's probably going to get a little bit more funding coming their way with Stuart Haas going away. I believe you're going to, and they're going to probably, obviously we know they're going to pick up one of those charters, so I think there's going to be more Ford money coming. I think maybe 3 years ago you're at Front Row Motorsports, you kind of thought you were a second-tier team, and I'm not sure that by next year Front Row Motorsports is not going to be on a much higher tier.
Well, look, Michael McDowell, I think Michael McDowell's leaving at the wrong time. He announced a couple weeks ago he was leaving. It's like, dude, you put in the hard work. You put in all that effort to make that team where it is. You've got their Daytona 500 win. You've got their road course wins. You've got them their playoff berths. And you blood, sweat, and tears. And now you're heading out. It's like, man, if I was Michael, I might be trying to think about coming back. I don't know. This is a super opportunity for him and this team, where they're going and what they've been putting into the sport.
Well, and it's certainly going to be an attractive opportunity maybe for a Chase Briscoe, a Noah Gregson, somebody leaving that Stuart Haas camp. All right, you mentioned the fact that Kyle Larson has missed a race and he is still leading the point standings. So we're looking at our championship standings right now, and we tend to focus more on the bottom of them than we do on the top of them, on who is at the cutoff line. And that cutoff line, I mean, Kyle Busch would be above the cutoff line if not for Chastain spinning him out last week. He's now 8 points behind Bubba Wallace on the cutoff line. Joey Logano still 16 points off the cutoff line. And we know there's a street race coming at Chicago that could go anyway. And kind of like what happened with Austin Cindric at Gateway, you get an upset in here and all bets are off.
Well, and that's Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez. Both of these guys have way less points, 320, 316 points, compared to Kyle Busch's 380, Joey Logano's 372, or Chase Briscoe's 361. But because those wins, they're up in that points deal. And it's going to be a battle royale. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago, how that line, if before Austin Cindric won, how it's going to keep dropping down as guys win. Well, look, right now, if another guy wins, that puts, Chris Buescher and Ryan Blaney close to being on the cutoff line. There is a lot of stuff that can happen with the upcoming schedule that can move this points line. But how about the two guys sitting out? Like you said, Kyle getting wrecked at the end there actually put him below that cutoff line. But Kyle Busch is 17th. Joey Logano is 18th. Those are marquee names right now that are outside looking in. And I got to look at that Ty Gibbs. Look at Ty Gibbs' sophomore season. He's 11th. Even if somebody wins, he's actually in a pretty good spot with if a couple people win, where he's far enough above that cut line that he's looking pretty strong for his playoff run this year.
No, he certainly is, but obviously we know that a couple of bad races, if you have a situation like Denny Hamlin had at Sonoma and you don't have that win to fall back on, Denny blowing up on lap 2, if you have a situation like that in the next, if you're Ty Gibbs without a win to fall back on, that little cushion he's got there can go away in a hurry. All right, let's take a look at what we've got in our upcoming schedule. This weekend, we'll be talking a lot more in this show about the first ever visit for the NASCAR Cup Series to Iowa Speedway, Newton, Iowa. I think that's about 35 miles outside of Des Moines, I believe. Brendan, you probably raced there. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But then we've got New Hampshire Motor Speedway coming up, the only visit we'll be making there this year, along with Nashville Super Speedway, the Chicago Street Course that we hope will be a dry race this year after all that. I don't know. Maybe we don't want it to be a dry race. It was pretty crazy last year. Shane Van Gisbergen is probably all for it being
doesn't want it.
another wet race. And then our one stop this year at Pocono Raceway. So we're really going through a whole series of races. St. Louis, Sonoma, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nashville, Chicago, Pocono, all tracks we're only racing at one time. This is an opportunity where everybody kind of has a little bit of an open book, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, the only two places you really got a notebook at are New Hampshire and Pocono, right? I mean, those are the two places that everybody knows. Nashville, we used to test at, but nobody has a real notebook there. Iowa, brand new for all the teams, except for, guys that have a lot of truck or Xfinity experience. Chicago Street Course. I mean, this is once again, I think the schedule is super cool, Jeff. I think that the scheduling that we've got all year long has been super fun. It's been fun to talk about. It's been fun to see the races and say, man, this is pretty awesome.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I think one thing that we talk about is the diversity. And, we're talking about, we go from a road course to a 3/4 mile track to a mile track to about a mile and a third track. And then we're on a street course and then a big 2.5 mile triangle. So I think when you look at all those different tracks that we're racing on here, right in the heart of the summer, I think that keeps every week exciting, keeps people interesting, kind of glued to what's going on. Okay, we'll be back on Gaughan Racing in just a few minutes, and we'll start breaking down everything for the inaugural race at Iowa Speedway.
South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rockin' dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grand View Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grand View Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Gaughan Racing, Jeff Motley in studio here at the South Point. Brendan Gaughan joining remotely from beautiful Atlantic coast of Florida, Cocoa Beach, down there hanging out with the kids, little space camp. Watch something launch tonight. That was a SpaceX. Is it space shuttle? I mean, is it just a rocket? I mean, what we got going on down there tonight?
I believe tonight we have a SpaceX. I think one of the Falcon Heavies is supposed to go up tonight. So last year we actually were really cool. We were here 2 launches in one day, the first time ever. So really cool to watch these launches. And I got to tell you, it's kind of fun, the kids doing the whole space camp thing. I mean, Kennedy Space Center is super awesome. And it's tough to get into this dang thing. This space camp has become pretty popular, but it's fun to be here. The kids love it. Michael, my son, loves it. We're with the Rice family. You and I both, so familiar with Rochelle and all the stuff she did, especially with the Super Bowl. Her kids, we're all down here together hanging out. And afterwards, they go surf and hang out on the beach. And I can think of much worse things to be doing for a week.
Yeah, I used to love it when I lived in Daytona. We go stand up on top of the press box and watch the shuttle launches. So it was pretty cool down there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely love it down there. But this weekend, we're talking about all things out in the Iowa cornfields, Iowa Speedway. It's our inaugural NASCAR Cup Series race there. We've been getting some inaugural races the last few years. Last year, we had the Chicago Street Race. We had Nashville a couple years ago. So it's nice to get some new tracks on the circuit. Now, one thing about Iowa, we haven't had a race on this track in 5 years. 2019, the last time the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series was there. There's been some discussion about the pavement. I'm sure you've probably heard that they've only paved part of the track. And so we really seem like qualifying is going to be very, very important because it sounds like they have paved the lower groove. They have not paved the upper groove. My understanding is they didn't have time to do it because of the cold weather that set in. I think there were some issues, and so they haven't been able to get the entire track paved. So they paved the lower grooves because it was very necessary because the track was crumbling, but the upper groove has not been paved. So if you get forced up there, you're in trouble.
Well, the upper line was where we used to race. I mean, the upper line was kind of the preferred groove except for qualifying. So, maybe that'll work out where it'll make the bottom lane passable, usable. They have a super fun, a really, really tough bump coming out of turn 4 that always was difficult for drivers. I didn't realize it's been 5 years since we raced at all at Iowa. That just it's weird to me to say it's been that long. But then turn 1, the tunnel bumps going over turn 1, that place is difficult. And the one thing I was always mad about Rusty when he built that track, and I wonder, I can't wait to see it on television, he didn't put any dashes on the racetrack. That was a thing that you had no reference points to where you were entering the corners and where you wanted to lift and stuff. And I always kind of thought that was funny that a guy like Rusty Wallace would be so involved in that place and didn't put any visual reference marks on that course. And it was always so tough to enter, especially turn 1 for me. But man, it was a fun place to race. And, a lot of guys, here's a place like you and I were talking off air. Austin Dillon, the South Point, does not have him for an odd to win. He's in the field. But Austin Dillon has an amazing record at Iowa Speedway. And he has a great record at Richmond, which is very similar. Could this be a place that maybe we bet on Austin Dillon not to win, but maybe for a top 3 if you can find him in a top 10?
Well, and you mentioned Richmond. I mean, I think aesthetically, if people are going to be watching this on TV and looking at the track, it looks the most like Richmond. But do you think it drives the most like Richmond, or does it drive more like a Phoenix, or where would you compare it?
Everybody else in the world says it drives like Richmond except me. Remember how much I hate Richmond. Richmond to me is like kryptonite is a step up for me. It's like it's awful. But I loved Iowa. I raced well at Iowa. I had good finishes at Iowa. So to me, it did not race in the same vein as Richmond. But everybody else in the sport said, man, it's just like Richmond.
Well, and obviously when you look at it, it's a 3/4 mile track, and it's really like a giant D shape with a big curved front straightaway and a very short back straightaway. So one thing that the drivers have said, I've seen some photos there, they're calling the track, it looks a little bit like a Frankenstein of a racetrack because of the paving and the patches. You've got dark, you've got light. It's almost looks like a quilt pattern out there with the different areas they paved and the places that they haven't. So it's going to look weird on TV. It's going to be curious to see how it races. Some drivers said they thought it was a 1-groove racetrack. Chase Elliott said he thought there might be able to be 2 grooves, but you're going to be running really close together. But they don't believe there's going to be an outer groove at all for this race. Probably something for next year there'll be an outer groove because they can finally finish paving it. But, I believe it was Jerry Caproth from NASCAR was quoted as saying that because when they found out they were getting the race and because you need warm weather to set the asphalt, that they just haven't had enough warm weather to get the entire track paved. So we'll see what we got coming to this weekend. So
I bet a guy like Tyler Reddick or a guy like Kyle Larson is going to try to prove you wrong about that outside line.
Well, and Kyle Larson's the one that went there and tested, I believe. And so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But let's see what happens on Sunday night, by the way. It's going to be a Sunday night race, which we don't get many of those time of year, but I think that race starts at like 6 o'clock in Iowa or something like that. All right, let's take a look at our odds to win. And Christopher Bell, who won in the Xfinity Series here in 2018 and 2019, so he certainly has got some trophies from Iowa under his belt. He comes in as the favorite. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson are at plus 700. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, William Byron, Martin Truex Jr. at 10-1. Ty Gibbs, Brad Keselowski, Tyler Reddick, all at 12-1. Chase Elliott and Chris Buescher at 20-1. I believe Buescher's got to win here in Xfinity. Keselowski's got to win here. Byron's got to win here. Bell's got multiple wins here. I mean, several of these guys. Ryan Blaney's got to win here. So a lot of these guys know this racetrack.
And I'm going to look at maybe Ty Gibbs. We were just talking about him. I don't think he's ever even raced at this racetrack. If it stopped in 2019, Ty Gibbs, I don't think so. Did he run an ARCA race, when he was 15, 16 years old? I don't know. He may not have ever even touched this track.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. And Truex is a guy, as a veteran, he didn't go run a lot of the lower series either. So I'd have to go back and look through the records here. And we know there's some guys that have got a lot of laps on this track. But again, it's been 5 years. This is a different race car with a different pavement. I'm not so sure that there's really going to be a lot that any of these guys can draw on. Heck, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a 3-time winner here. He won 3 in a row in the Xfinity Series, but that was 10, 12 years ago.
Well, and I'm going to fall back on, I said Richmond, right? Even though I hated it, it still is a place that looks like Richmond. And Martin Truex Jr., 9 top 10s, 7 top 5s in the last 10 races at Richmond. If this place does race anything like Richmond, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, these are guys that I'm going to be looking at. Kyle Busch, all these are guys that 8 top 10s in 10 races, 8 top 10s in 10 races. Denny Hamlin, 8 top 5s in 10 races. I'm going to look at those guys and say, well, I'm going to fall back to the closest thing to it, which is Richmond Speedway.
And Denny was the winner at Richmond earlier this year. Chris Buescher, strong run. Joey Logano had a really good run, and we haven't even gotten to Joey Logano yet. We do. Yeah, 10-1, excuse me. All right, let's look at some of our long shots here. Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain are coming in here at 25-1. Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, all at 50-1. Chase Briscoe is 60. Josh Berry, a short track guy, coming in at 80-1. Big number there. Michael McDowell and Noah Gragson at 100-1. And the field bet, which you mentioned, Austin Dillon, one of the guys that's in the field bet here, he comes in at 20. Well, the field comes in at 20-1.
Yeah, there's 14, 16 guys in the field right now at the South Point. And some of those guys, I can't say I dislike. I think that a guy like Austin Dillon probably has a really good shot of one of his better runs here just because of experience. So, I think that you have a large field for the first time. I'm not looking at the field and you and I just going, don't worry about the field. I think the field could come into play this race, possibly. Not guaranteeing it, just if there's ever a race, this is the one.
Well, and another guy we mentioned earlier in the show, he doesn't have a win yet, but Todd Gilliland's a guy that they expect to probably run fairly well. Mm-hmm. He's in that. Corey LaJoie's. Number of guys looking for their first win in there. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who I mentioned, has 3 wins at Iowa Speedway in the Xfinity Series. Now, we know in his early days in Xfinity Series, he was quite dominant. He's never shown that dominance in the Cup Series, but he does have 3 wins there, and he is one of the 20-1 guys in the field. All right, let's take a look at our top 3s for this weekend. Christopher Bell is at the top of that list at a plus 110. Kyle Larson comes in at plus 160. Denny Hamlin is plus 200, followed by Joey Logano at plus 250. Ryan Blaney's plus 260. Truex at 285. Byron and Gibbs at 320. Keselowski 350. Reddick 380. Buescher, Elliott at 500. Chastain 600. Kyle Busch 700. Josh Berry and Bubba Wallace at 10-1.
Yeah, I'm going to circle right in on that Chris Buescher right there. That Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, 500 and 350. Look, let's go back to even the Wilkesboro. I know it was a non-points race, Jeff. I know it was the All-Star race, but the All-Star race was a short track that the Fords finally started performing on. And you're giving me Chris Buescher. He finished 3rd in the All-Star race. You're going to tell me that Chris Buescher is giving me plus 500 for a top 3. You're telling me Brad Keselowski, one of the hottest Fords in the field, is plus 350 for a top 3. I kind of like those 2 shots right there. Even Kyle Busch, good run last weekend. Sonoma, short track package, kind of the same thing. Has been running pretty good on the short tracks. I kind of like those longer numbers right there as a good shot for that top three.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. And Chase Elliott, another one at a plus 500. This is a kind of racetrack you expect Chase Elliott to run well. Yeah. So let's look at
and he's got experience there.
He absolutely does. Let's take a look at some of our longer shots on top threes. Chase Briscoe is also at 10-1. Alex Bowman 12. Austin Cindric 14. Gregson is 18. McDowell 28. Suarez 40. Gilliland, Priest, and Hocevar, and Eric Jones, and Justin Haley, all at 45-1. Austin Dillon and A.J. Allmendinger at 60. Stenhouse at 90. Zane Smith, Corey LaJoie at 110.
Look, Michael McDowell, 9th at North Wilkesboro. Good strong this weekend. Todd Gilliland, 10th at Richmond. These are guys that have run well enough for me to say, I like that high digit top 10 number or top 3 number. That's a pretty good number, Motley.
Yeah, and a couple of the other guys there on this page here, Alex Bowman coming in at 12-1. And look, I don't know what to make of Austin Cindric. I know he won at Gateway because Blaney ran out of gas, but guess what? He was running second. He wasn't like 8 guys ran out of gas or 15 guys. One guy ran out of gas, and he was able to win the race. So you never know. I think there's a guy that certainly would have an opportunity. So it's going to be very interesting to see about these different top threes. Okay, we come back on Gaughan Racing. We'll start giving the driver head-to-heads, and we'll get into our group matchups.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Back here in Gaughan Racing, Jeff Motley here in the studio at the South Point Hotel Casino. Brendan Gaughan joining us remotely from Space Camp down near Cape Canaveral in Florida. Brendan, we're talking all things about the Iowa Corn. How many numbers are we? Is it 250, 350, 400? I don't know. But it's the Iowa Corn race this week. 350. Interesting that we talk about how this is very similar to Richmond, where Richmond runs 400 and we're running 350 at Iowa. I guess everybody, and it's a night race maybe, Sunday night. We want to get off TV before it's 11 o'clock Eastern time. So I don't know why they're running 350 laps.
If you build it, they will come. They'll show up.
Yep, or it could be 350 miles. I don't know. You think I'd have researched that before we come on here, but I just saw the 350. And, sometimes you do a K, like 500K at Phoenix, and some races are measured in miles like we have at Vegas, and then you measured in laps at Bristol and Martinsville. So you never really know.
Listen, you guys were the king of the innocuous numbers. You guys,
remember,
you and Talladega 499.
Well, then the one year we had the Shelby American, and you had to just guess how long that one was. You remember that one? I think they do that at Watkins
Yes, I
Glen
did.
too. Remember the Watkins Glen? I'm not sure what they call it now, but it was the Bud at the Glen. It was the Frontier at the
The Bud
Glen.
at the Glen. That was yep.
So
The Bud at the Glen. No numbers, no
Right.
miles, no laps, no nothing. Just Bud at the Glen.
So you're looking up the scoreboard and you just see laps ticking off, and you go, I don't know how many is left in this race. So
How many laps is that?
anyway, well, we'll figure it out by Sunday night, I guess, right? All right, let's take a look at our driver head-to-heads, and Brendan, there's a lot of love for Christopher Bell out here, but boy, I tell you, you get an opportunity to get both Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson on a plus line against Christopher Bell. That's kind of interesting to me.
I mean, look, you were talking about Christopher Bell's stats here, and it definitely shows. And I agree. I think that's the right number. But like you just said, I'm getting Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson at a plus 110 in a head-to-head. That's pretty spectacular. But the number I'm zeroed in on right here, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney. Joey Logano won the All-Star race. Joey Logano has 8 top 10s in the last 10 races at Richmond. Ryan Blaney has 3 top 10s in 10 races, an average finish of 15.8. So I looked at that Ryan Blaney bet right there with Joey Logano and said, hey, I like that. It's a plus 105. It's a small number, but I still like that one. And I do like the Larson or Hamlin. Yeah, I get the Bell's really good here, but I do like that a lot. I even like the William Byron plus 105, honestly, against Ryan Blaney. I'm kind of on the don't Blaney line right now.
Yeah.
I think that's a good bet.
I kind of agree. I like the Byron plus 105. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate with you a little bit on the Joey Logano deal at North Wilkesboro, comparing it to here. He won the pole as part of the qualifying, which
Yes.
the qualifying there was partly because his pit crew was so efficient because you had to make a pit stop to get there. It was also a much shorter race, so it's a little bit easier to win the All-Star race. I'm not carrying over quite as much of that. I would tell anybody who's going to bet this race, don't put a nickel down until qualifying is over, because I do believe we're going to have a very, very difficult track to pass. We've seen on some of the short tracks how hard it is, and I think qualifying is going to be as important here as it is anywhere, including road courses.
I don't disagree. First, watch practice, watch qualifying, make sure you pay attention to those two things. In defense of my Blaney versus Joey Logano bet, just go back to even this year at to the run at Richmond. William Byron finished 7th. Where is old Ryan Blaney? I'm trying to find him, and I'm all the way 19th. Blaney has not been really good here. So or at a place like this, Logano was 2nd. So I really like those two numbers with Byron and with Joey Logano head to head. Those are good numbers to me.
All right, well, let's get into our group matchups, and I tell you, Group A this week is pretty interesting. I think with the numbers here. Christopher Bell is a pretty overwhelming favorite at a plus 210. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson both at plus 280. And then Ryan Blaney comes in at a plus 320. And Brendan, first off to me, there's 2 things here. Number one, I'm not sure Ryan Blaney belongs in Group A. So, again, immediately, this is almost like a 3-driver head-to-head instead of a 4.
Yep.
And then you're telling me there's a chance to get Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin both at plus 280? I might just bet both of them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was thinking the same thing when I saw it. I go, okay, Blaney does not deserve Group A this week. So I'm looking at look, Seabell, you gave his stats, Jeff. He is fantastic here. He's one of the better drivers. He was one of the better drivers at Iowa before it closed. But man, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson at 280s? You're right. I could take both of them and still end up with almost a full point up in a betting pool as long as Christopher Bell doesn't win. So I do like that. I would shade a little bit toward Larson right now. I think he's running a little bit better than Denny Hamlin as of late, but I do like Hamlin or Larson here. Normally I stay away from Group A. I like Group A this week.
Well, and I think I'm kind of betting against Bell here. I'm loving Denny in his head-to-head against Bell, and I'm kind of liking Larson here. I think Larson, after the Indianapolis thing and getting the waiver, I think there's a fire burning in Larson right now. He was very disappointed that didn't work out, but I think he wants to prove to everybody that this waiver was deserved and he's worthy of being a champion. I mean, not that he's not there's any doubt about it, but I think Larson's got a little fire burning right now, and I just love Kyle Larson going into this week. So I love him there.
I like what you said, Jeff. Take Denny Hamlin versus Seabell in the head-to-head and get the 110 or 110 what it was, and then go take Kyle Larson in the group, and you got a chance to win both of them.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's not even really even hedging your bet. It's just kind of betting against Christopher Bell, I guess. So, which I feel bad because I had Bell he came and did our press conference last week at Sonoma in Sacramento. He could not have been nicer, spent a little time with him. Just a nice guy. So now I'm feeling bad. I'm betting against him.
We say this all the time. The betting that we talk about has nothing to do with our feelings towards the drivers.
No, absolutely. You're right. But sometimes, you get a little soft spot for a guy and you want to see him do well.
Absolutely.
But then you realize,
Absolutely.
If he does well, I just lost my pick. So you're kind of tugged a little bit. Okay. All right. Let's move on to Group B, where we've got William Byron as our favorite at plus 240. Then Joey Logano plus 2. Well, we got. I guess there's been some betting. Joey Logano is plus 260, but Brad Keselowski's actually been bet down to plus 255. And then the long shot here is Ty Gibbs at plus 325.
I always talk about enticement. I struggle with the enticement on the Ty Gibbs bet right there. But what I do like is something about Joey Logano not been running well. Ford's been running better. I do like the 260 on Joey Logano right now, especially if Brad's been being bet down. I can't believe I'm betting against Brad Keselowski as of late. But I don't dislike the William Byron at 240. That's a big number on the favorite in a group matchup at 240. That's not a terrible bet. I just don't want to bet this one, even though Brad's in it. There's something to me says Joey Logano, and I like that number, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger on it.
And one thing about Byron, it seems like every season he comes out of the gate like a house on fire. And then there's like that mid-season lull before we get later into the season. And I feel like he might be – it's like we haven't talked about William Byron very much. It's kind of like seems like in the middle of the season, kind of like, I don't know where he is. Logano's desperate. But I don't know how good that team is right now. To me, it's really hard to bet against Brad Keselowski the way that team's been performing. And when it comes to the boards, look, I know Cindric won for Penske at Gateway, and I know that Blaney was up there. They were running first and second, but I think week in and week out, Keselowski and Buescher and the RFK cars have been the better Ford cars. So hard to go against Keselowski here. All right, let's take a look over at Group C. Chase Elliott comes in as the favorite at plus 230. Ross Chastain is plus 240. Chris Buescher plus 305, and Kyle Busch plus 310. There's one I like a lot here, Brendan.
Listen, Chris Buescher's a man that's been on a mission, and he's plus 305, and he's back down in Group C. I think he was, Group B a couple weeks ago, and you and I were both bummed out that Chris has worked his way up to Group B, and now he's back down a group into C. I like that, man. I don't know. I mean, Ross Chastain got a lot of experience there too, but I like that Chris. But I like Chris just about everywhere right now. I mean, Chris, I'm on a Chris Buescher betting tear. I mean, he has proven that he knows how to win groups and win matchups.
Well, clearly the Fords have been doing better, and I think this is a track that sets up so well. So you and I are on the same page here. I just love Buescher, and you're getting a plus 305. I mean, that's just such a great number on Chris Buescher in Group C. I mean, obviously, Kyle Busch, I just don't know where that team is right now. So to me, this is almost a three-team race too.
And he's got to win at Richmond. Don't forget, he won 2 years ago in Richmond, or last year in the
fall race in Richmond.
The playoff race. Yeah. So I mean, this is a place where it's not like, and that wasn't like he backed into a win there. Remember, he was dominant. So this could be another good race for.
And he has an Xfinity win at Iowa. So it's not like Chris Buescher. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to like about Chris Buescher, I believe, in this race.
I like that. And he's 305. I like that a lot.
All right, let's take a look at our Group D. Alex Bowman comes in as the favorite here at plus 235. Bubba Wallace is plus 240. Chase Briscoe plus 300. And that guy that just won 2 weeks ago, Austin Cindric, is plus 310.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that yawn was because you were bored with this group or if you were really yawning there. Was that a fake yawn or was that a real yawn?
It wasn't. It was not a yawn on camera. It was a yawn where I was off. They were showing the odds, man. You called me out on the yawn there. I mean,
I thought.
goodness gracious.
I got two screens here, and I can't tell all the time which one you're on and which one you're not. I thought that was a fake yawn that you hated this group. So.
No, I'm intrigued by Austin Cindric. I mean, Bubba Wallace has cooled off as of late. Chase Briscoe has been kind of on and off as of late. Bowman is the guy like we talk about. He disappears for 6 months and then shows up, wins the race, makes the playoffs, and, does something. But Cindric, do you believe in Cindric yet? Do you believe in Penske yet? Gateway, both Penske cars, Blaney and him up front. Do you believe in them yet? And if you do, 310 is a great number.
I kind of look at this group and I say, this is mine where I just throw up the X because I can make a reason why they all could win it. And I feel like I could make a reason why I don't know if I'd pick any of them. I mean, Cindric is kind of intriguing because he's 310. I mean, those couple of Fords there in the high numbers. So.
And I just said intriguing. It's only intriguing. I don't think I'm going to bet this group. But if you believe in Ford, Penske, and Cindric, 310 is a great bet.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll wrap up our show with our last groups and our picks.
From the South Point studio, the perfect blend of sports.
But I think the Niners are going to wear them down. Detroit Pistons lost their 36 games.
Comedy.
See over-under on that relationship lasting. I'm going to put mayo in the coffee.
Yeah.
I am beautiful.
And a whole lot of Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Yeah. Pittsburgh.
Join Ryan McCormick.
That's at least 2 picks outside of our own in the first round next year. Oreo.
And host Frank Nicotero.
I look at the clock. I go,
Watch Punchlines live at noon every weekday.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour, 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. Bingo! And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind Racin sportsbooks. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sportsbook, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day.
Back here on our final segment of Gaughan Racing, Jeff Motley, not exactly alongside Brendan Gaughan. Maybe on your screen we are if you're watching us on the South Point YouTube channel. Brendan's joining us remotely from Florida, from Space Camp down there in Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, some place along the beautiful Space Coast of Florida, I believe they call it down
That's
there.
right.
So, and we are
Just south of mighty Daytona.
There you go. Yeah, about an hour south of Daytona, I believe, down there where you are.
Yep.
Pretty close to that.
Yep.
Right across from Orlando a little bit, Disney World. So anyway, we are talking about the inaugural race this weekend at Iowa Speedway, the Iowa Corn 350. We were in our group matchups, and we're moving on to Group E now. We have Carson Hocevar, Daniel Suarez, and Todd Gilliland all at plus 245. Austin Dillon, the longest of long shots, at a plus 360.
Yeah, you're going to laugh at me, Jeff. The guy who has the most experience, the car that's running the best right here is Todd Gilliland, right? He's been running fantastic. I was talking about him at the start of the show. I'm really bummed Todd is in the group with Austin. That tears me a little bit. But Austin Dillon at 360 is enough enticement with the experience that he has here, with how poorly he's run and how I expect them to keep working on things. The group that he's up against, I like the 360. I'm going to bet the 360 with AD. Gilliland is the guy that I probably like to win it, but I like the enticement. I think that gives me enough with Dillon at 360.
Well, I agree that's a great enticement, but I actually think a plus 245 on Todd Gilliland is a pretty good enticement too. So
It's a good number.
yeah, and,
Yep.
so I'm kind of with you here. I really think Gilliland should be the favorite in this group. Hocevar, he's been relatively consistent. Suarez has not been consistent. Austin Dillon, I mean, again, he's a long shot for a reason. At some point, you think that team might put it a little bit together, but the fact that even Kyle Busch hasn't been running that well, he did have a pretty good run at Sonoma last week until the last lap incident, but I like Gilliland here a lot. That's just my thought. All right, let's take a look at our Group F. Justin Haley comes in as the favorite here at plus 245. Ryan Preece is plus 250. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 3 wins at Iowa Speedway in the Xfinity Series, plus 260. And the big long shot here is Zane Smith coming in at plus 325. We don't see Zane in a group very often.
Yeah, I look at this and give you the only thing I can give you is what you've thrown out is about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. But I would say I don't dislike Preece. He's at 250. He is a modified guy, a short track kind of ace. This track really fits his style. He has raced there in Xfinity Series. I don't dislike Ryan Preece, but the best stats you have are Stenhouse Jr.'s in his history at this place. So, and he just signed a contract extension and all that stuff. So JTG has a little momentum, so to speak, going. So I don't dislike Stenhouse in this group, but I also would caution about Preece.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I kind of really think that this might come down to 2 drivers. I think Justin Haley is a guy that it's like all of a sudden sometimes you look up and there's Justin Haley running 8th or 9th or 10th. It's like where did he come from? Like the announcers haven't said his name all day long. Maybe that's the Fox announcers. I don't know. We got NBC taking over this week, so we'll see. But it's just odd that Haley just appears a lot of times. And Stenhouse, again, we say he's going to go into this week with some confidence, even though it's probably hard for him to remember when he got those 3 wins because literally it was like in 2012, 13, 14, back in those days. So it's been a while ago. But I just kind of think this kind of comes down to Haley and Stenhouse. If I had to pick one, I'd probably lean Haley, but I don't think I will probably take this group anyway. I think I would stay away from it. All right,
I think that was the Danica Patrick era for Ricky Stenhouse.
Oh yeah, very well could have been. It might have even been pre-Danica Patrick era. It was when he was driving for Roush in the Xfinity Series, and he was really good every week. In fact, I know he picked up a win out in Las Vegas here in the Xfinity Series back in those days. All right, let's take a look at our manufacturer picks, and holy smokes, Ford is not the underdog for a change. Toyota is an overwhelming favorite, plus 125. But there's belief now in the Fords. They're up to a plus 200, and Chevrolet comes up the rear at plus 220. Brendan, Chevrolet's going to be the long shot?
Here's the thing. We've talked all day about one Chevrolet, really, and his name is Kyle Larson. We're not saying William Byron we think is a real threat to win, but he was the hottest guy in the sport a few weeks ago. Chase Elliott, he got hot again, but he's 20-1 to win this race. Cooled off. So we're really talking about Chevrolet only with one guy right now. If you believe in the one guy, you get plus 200. If you believe that the Fords have finally come about, and they have come about strong on some of these tracks lately, Ford is plus 200. Toyota, they're getting a little paltry return there for Toyota, but man, I like that. I like that Ford and Chevrolet pick. I think I'm going to have to pick between one of them because I like those numbers.
Well, I'm with you. I like the number plus 220, and I know we're kind of saying just Kyle Larson. I mean, you got Ross Chastain is another guy who could certainly be a factor here at a place like Iowa. But I just think the fact that you're going to give me Chevrolet, as many Chevys that are in the race, and knowing that we're talking about Hendrick Motorsports out here, and you're going to make that the long shot at plus 220, that's just enticing enough to make me want to go for that carrot, if you will. I think plus 220 on Chevrolet. I kind of like that one. All right, not much to really talk about this week with our championship odds. Kyle Larson winning really didn't change anything. We won't talk that much about championship odds unless we get an upset winner or somebody gets their first win of the year or we get closer to the playoffs, I think. So
the only thing I'll look at is Kyle Larson is now down to a plus 300. Kyle Larson, his small odd to win the championship has been getting smaller and smaller even. So that's the only one that you're really looking at. But still, Jeff, I see some value. I see a lot of value in guys, with the name of Tyler Reddick. I see some value in guys with Christopher Bell, double digit. I see Chase Elliott, double digit. I see some value in Chris Buescher, 30-1. I see some value in Brad Keselowski, 16. There's still guys out there I think could be a threat to the championship that have long, long odds.
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess the other name you could look at there a little bit is Joey Logano. If you think that team's going to start putting things together, he's 30-1. The problem for Joey Logano is he's not accumulating any playoff points either. And I think that's the thing. And we talked about that.
That hurts.
We saw how that affected Kevin Harvick a couple years ago. You've got to accumulate some playoff points, because just getting in means you better win one of those first 3 races or you're not going to be in the playoffs for very long. So those guys like that are trying to point their way in, they need to get some playoff points.
It's what saved Martin Truex Jr. last year. Remember? Martin Truex Jr. was abysmal when the playoffs started, but he kept advancing in rounds because of those playoff points. So
right.
It matters. Those playoff points matter.
No, you're exactly right. All right, let's take a look at how we did on our picks last week. It was a great week for you.
Let's do that.
Great week for you and the pit crew. The only pick I got right was Larson Gibbs. Now, thanks, Ross Chastain. I could have had the group pick with Kyle Busch, but I didn't, thanks to the last lap. You had a really solid week. You had the Larson over Gibbs, the same I did, but you also had Chris Buescher in Group B, and he was plus 330, so big win on Chris Buescher. But how about our pit crew last week? They agreed with you on Buescher. They had Larson against Truex, so they still had Larson on a plus line, but it was against Truex, not against Gibbs. And then they had Brad Keselowski to win his group, and Brad had another strong run at Sonoma last week. So really, really nice job by both you guys last week. Which
they're catching me. I feel a little heat now almost. They're like halfway to me, which is pretty impressive, which as far as they've come. If you take the last 6 weeks, I think the best point getter absolutely has been the pit crew and Jeff. But look at all of us though. I mean, come on. You're 7 units to the positive. I'm 30. They're up to now almost 15 units. Betting with us is making you some money.
That's right. Listen to us, you'll get rich, right?
Depends on how much you bet.
That's kind of like the Red Bull will give you wings thing. I think that could get you in trouble if you can't guarantee that, right? Okay. All right. But unfortunately, I am bringing up the rear, so I will be making my picks first. And I am taking the Denny Hamlin head-to-head plus 110 against Christopher Bell. I'm going to take 3 group matchups. I am taking Kyle Larson in Group A. I'm going Chris Buescher in Group C and Todd Gilliland in Group E. And then I am going to go and take the long shot, which is hard to say it's the long shot, in the manufacturer's pick with the Chevrolet for plus 220. And then I have the pit crew picks here, which obviously they did quite well last week. They are all in. They're playing Ty Cobb this week. They got 3.
They're playing Brendan Gaughan's strategy. My strategy, baby.
They're singles hitters this week. They've got 3 picks that are head-to-head. They've got Tyler Reddick head-to-head at plus 120 over Keselowski. They are all in on the anti-Chris Bell bandwagon. They've got Hamlin plus 110 and Larson plus 110 against Bell. They're taking Joey Logano in Group B, and they're taking Martin Truex Jr. at plus 285 for a top 3.
I think they've seen the light now. They're trying to get a little more of the favorites in there. Little close. They've got themselves so far out of the basement that they don't want to go back. So I can't dislike those. I'm going to start with I got no top 3s this week. I've got 2 head-to-heads. I'm going to go Denny Hamlin versus Bell. I am going 1 bet against C. Bell.
Is there that's kiss of death? Kiss of death. We all 3 took him.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But I'm also taking the Joey Logano versus Blaney. I think that's a super easy pick for me. That's a lock almost right there in my opinion. And then I got 2 groups. I got Chris Buescher in Group C. He's cashing tickets for me, baby. You keep him down in that Group C, Westgate. I'll take him all the time at plus 305. I'm also going to go head-to-head against you in Group E. I am going to go Austin Dillon in Group E. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is with what I talked about, so I got that. And then I had Chevrolet as my manufacturer, but I know that if I have so many the same as you, I'm going to kick myself. I'm going to jump ship off the bow tie. I'm going to go Ford for the winning manufacturer. I'm putting an asterisk next to this because I'm going to be mad at myself, Motley. But I'm going Ford.
Yeah, because you took one look at it and you said, I can't pick 3 of the same picks as a guy in last place.
That's what I said.
I know that's
what I said.
Exactly.
That is exactly you picked that. Yeah.
No,
basically.
I know that's exactly what you were thinking. So, but hey, I need to do whatever I can to gain ground. All right, Brendan, we got about 30 seconds left. Cool. We're going to a new track this week, Iowa Speedway.
Yep.
It's kind of something exciting about a new track, right?
Oh, it's exciting to be back at Iowa. I was there for the inaugural race, all those years ago with Rusty Wallace. So hopefully the fans will show up. We already know that. So hopefully fans have a great time. Track puts on a good race, and you know what? We'll talk about it next week.
Yep, it's sold out this weekend at Iowa Speedway. It's going to be exciting. A little Sunday night under the lights out in the cornfields of Iowa. All right, that'll do it for our show this week. Brendan, hopefully back in the studio next week. We'll wrap up Iowa and talk about New Hampshire.